Welcome to Connections. I'm your host, April Healy, and I'm sitting here with my really good friend, Lindy Hale. She's the second-year director of Bethel Atlanta School of Supernatural Ministries, and her and Steve are senior leaders of Bethel Atlanta. Hi, Lindy.
Hello, April. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Awesome.
Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're joining us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thanks. So I know that one of the greatest things you do is love people well, and it's one of your greatest strengths and one of your greatest desires. And so can you actually tell us like how you learned to love?
Thanks, April. It's really sweet.
Thanks.
Actually, one of my favorite stories is about my dad. I feel like of any man I've ever, or woman, any person I've ever known, I feel like he loves better than anybody I've ever met. He loved so unconditionally. He'd sing songs to me. He would love on me all the time. And we had 5 kids in our family. He was just Mom was a great lover, but he was exceptional at loving, telling me how wonderful I was. And
Wow.
I learned from him, I believe. Yeah.
Wow. So can you tell me some stories, some things that he did
Sure.
that how it taught you to love?
There's some great stories. So my dad, he's a cardiologist. So this guy was so busy. He had 5 kids, a wife. He's a cardiologist, and he was elder of the church.
Wow, that is busy.
Yeah, but there was this kid in our youth group who would sing, with this guitar. He's like 16, and he'd come to youth group. We had youth group at our house a lot, and his parents were deaf, and he would, tell my dad, Paul. He said, I don't have anybody listen to my new songs, because he had these new songs he was writing.
Yeah.
And so my dad said, I tell you what, Ronnie, why don't you start coming to our house on Monday nights, and you can have dinner with us, and I'll go sit in my living room with you for about an hour, and you can sing your new songs to me. So he'd have Ronnie come over and be part of our life every Monday night for years.
Wow.
So he just loved on this kid individually. And then a great story, this is such a cool story. There, back in the day, right after World War II, my dad was in medical school, and he met this guy named Yaso and his wife Takako Matsui, and they were Japanese, and they were at Emory Medical School with Dad. And so my dad and the preacher of our church, Brother Jim, they befriended these people, and they're all probably about 22 years old.
Okay.
And back in those days, they brought them to church, but people hated the Japanese right after World War II, obviously.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a terrible thing. You have a Japanese person. I remember these people coming to our house when we were really little bitty kids, because they knew Ma and Pa and Brother Jim and Dura for 10 years, and they all went to medical school together. And that couple became Christians at the church, and even people of that church couldn't stand them, except, that's how bad the prejudice against Japan was, which
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah,
a lot of people
World
had
War II.
lost their boys in
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor and everything.
Yeah.
So anyway, they loved on this couple so much, they got saved, and that couple went back to Japan, and Yaso became the head of medicine over every hospital in Japan.
Oh my gosh, that's
And for
amazing.
years, he was just pouring out the love of God, because he picked it up from Mom and Dad and Brother Jim and Dura, 50 years before. It's an amazing story about how much they loved the unlovely and unwanted.
Yeah.
So those are 2 great stories.
That's
about Papa.
amazing.
Yeah.
What was the song that your dad would sing to your mom?
Oh, Ma's name. Ma's name was Rosemarie. So you go, oh, Rosemarie, I love you. He'd sing that all the time.
Every morning for breakfast,
Oh,
right?
all the time. And I'm always dreaming of you, but that's all he knew. And he would sing that over and over again. They were kind of flamboyantly in love and sitting in each other's laps type, married
I
couple.
love
They were
that.
really cute.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So he was
so
a real
cute.
loving man. So Pawpaw was one great way. And just the other day, I had this really cool dream about golden retrievers, and it made me think back when I was a little girl. My mom, we decided we were going to breed and raise collies. So we started having these collie puppies and raising collies and litter after litter. But I fell in love. I had 2 or 3 grown collies that I fell in love with. And I really think God taught me about how you could love. I mean, one would get run over and it'd be just devastating. But as a little 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10-year-old,
Yeah.
I was learning how to fall in love with dogs
That's
also, and to really care about just learning how to love and learning how to laugh and cry over things that I loved. So, I've thought about this lately. So those moments with mom and dad and my dogs meant a lot.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What is something that your parents did well when raising you that you replicated in your family?
I had great parents, that's for sure. Well, there's 5 kids, and it's so interesting because I think some kids don't respond as much as other kids. Like some of us really leaned in to mom, pa, loving on them. Others, were more laid back, or not laid back, but kind of, set off to the side kind of feeling. So a few of us, like one thing, they were really loving to everybody. But one thing they did, which I thought was really cool, maybe I did it with them, but
sure.
Every night when they would go to bed, I'd go climb in bed with them and just talk about my day. And they were just great parents, to talk about what's going on in your life, and they were just really loving. So
that's really cool. Really cool. So how did you fall in love with Steve?
That's a fun story because when I was in 10th grade, he was my little friend in the apartment complex. And I say that because he was 8th grade. He's a year and 3 months younger than me. So literally, a 10th grade girl is full grown. And he was this little, about this high, 8th grade, skinny little kid. But he was totally the coolest kid in the block. And I was just a tomboy, so I wasn't really into guys.
Yeah.
So we would play football for hours, me and him and all of his little buddies and my little brothers. And we'd play football in the parking lot. So I met him then, so I was a 10th grader. Then this was during Vietnam War. He was there with his dad and stepmom, his dad was in the war. So anyway, he left. We didn't see him again for 5 years. He comes back to Georgia Tech, and I'm at Auburn, and he just calls us up. And he started going to church, so we became buddies, and we'd play tennis all the time. And I still felt like I was hanging out with my little brher. You know what I mean? Because he was Biff's friend, not mine, really.
Yeah.
And but he had grown up and gotten handsome, and so I liked him as a friend. And we kind of hung out and dated a little bit, but I felt like I was hanging out with my brother.
Okay.
And then one time, he was very careless, and he was doing handstands in the dorm. And he cut his foot open so bad he had to have surgery on it.
Oh,
so
no.
I was going to go visit him. And this is, I'm 21 years old, and I find myself downstairs at the hospital in the bathroom putting on makeup going, I really like this guy. And it was like it hit me like a ton of bricks how much I liked him.
Oh, wow.
And from that moment on, we started dating, and after that I kissed him. So that was the beginning of that. That was the beginning of falling in deep like with him and stuff.
Yeah.
So a little further. So for about 2 years, I never knew, how do you know you want to marry somebody?
So you dated for 2 years?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
At least. We were just hanging out a lot, playing tennis a lot, dating some.
Sure.
And I was saying, how do you know? I was asking my dad, how do you know? And he said, you got to pray about it, but you just got to use your mind too and think about. It was very kind of practical. But I decided, I was a school teacher at this point, so this is when I just graduated from, college, and I was starting to teach school, and he was still at Tech.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm free for the summer. So I was a school teacher. And I said, I'm going to go see him every day for lunch, and I'm just going to love on him and just be a great girlfriend. And I just kind of poured my heart into the relationship.
Like you put your heart all in?
Yeah. So
wow.
I did that.
That's awesome.
In 2 weeks, I was in love with him. It was wild.
Oh,
it was such a God
Lindy.
thing. But anyway,
that's the best. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah, me too. So,
and you've been married for how long now?
This July's 39 years.
Wow.
I know.
That's so
I
wonderful.
know. Flies by.
Yeah, it does.
It's pretty wonderful.
What would you say, how could you love on people well in your regular everyday life?
I think I learned something about, years ago we had a youth group, and we had a lot of kids, a lot of these goth kids that were coming to it, and it wasn't easy loving on them as much as the all-American looking kids. I mean, this is back when I was, 40 years old, and I said, God, how do you fall in love with everybody? How do you, and then I felt like one day he told me, you've got to love like I love. You got to ask me for my heart for that person.
Yeah.
So I started praying, you know, God, just give me your heart for these people. And oh my goodness, I fell in love with these kids in this youth group. I mean, like really in love with them, like deeply. I was going, this is amazing. So now, you know, I don't think about it every day, but I really often say, God, I want your heart. I want your heart for people. And I find myself really loving people, like, wow, you know, and it's surprising. And I tell people a lot I love them, but I really feel it.
Yeah.
And I know it's from God because
That's
I asked him for his heart, you know, for that.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
Well, Lindy, thanks so much for joining us. I loved having you on the show, and I love your stories. They're always so beautiful.
Thanks, April.
You're welcome. And you guys, thanks so much for joining us. We also love having you watch, and we'd love to have you back next time.